Would you run your whole mix through a preamp? No, I don't like that. I remember when this whole thing started to run your mixes through preamps. And I know people do it. I just don't see the point, especially now that there are like so many color boxes dedicated for that purpose. The silver bullet, I had it, it's great. The SSL Fusion, the Rupert Neve design master bus. Of course, they're more expensive than a couple of pre's, but there's a reason why. I don't see like the whole running your mix through preamps came when the passive summing mixers came up. And so you needed a pair of preamps to run to drive the gain up, because the passive summing mixers will drop your level. But to bastardize that technique, which has a specific purpose, to bring your level up and just run it through a couple of preamps, no, I don't like it. Alberto, have you ever built your own cables, or do you always buy them at the store? I tried to build my own cables and failed miserably, so I just buy them. Or I have Joe Vicetti make them for me. Matthias, do you like LSR monitors? Would you be able to mix with just those? You mean the little ones? I did mix a couple of tracks successfully with those. Yeah, I like them very much. I keep them very close, so for me are more editing monitors than mixing. But when I first moved here in LA, I didn't have like my setup yet, and I had to deliver a couple of mixes. I mixed them on them, and then I checked in, you know, big studio, and they were translating just fine, so I just got used to it. I like them. They're cool. Dard, I'm a newbie. I follow your channel for 2 months. And I thank you very much for everything. Thank you for being here. What do you think about the Audio Escape brand and its clones? I never tried them, and from what I see, a lot of people get them. I don't have enough feedback for me to give you an opinion on them. I'd never tried them myself. And you know, to be honest, some of the greatest designs for compressors, especially for EQ, are difficult. Some compressors are not that difficult to build. They're fairly simple, and right now we are in an era in which you can source the material very easily from either China or other countries. Clones nowadays are really good. Audioscapes, I don't really have experience myself, but you know, if they want to send me a unit, we'll test it. Where are those great Eve speakers, Claudius? They're right there in the boxes. You cannot see them. But as you can see, I left a space there. I was saying before, because I still have to mount more panels and I don't want to drop them. So they'll be up. They will be up with the gens. They will be up probably with also the LP8. What do you think about mono/stereo? Do you mix in mono or stereo? What do you think about the extreme panning on the guitars left and right on rock mix? I mix LCR. So for me, there's no in-between panning. It's an element, it's either center, left, or right, period. I mean, few exceptions, toms, maybe there are like 50%, but I don't go in between. It's either 90% of the elements are center, left, right, hard, left, right, or 50%. What I do in my mixes a lot, and this is probably the missing part, because people think LCR and think static, everything sounds the same, is my effects. And a lot of elements, I automate the panning. So it's either a mono element that goes left and right and a reverb panning in the other side, on the opposite side, or a stereo synth or a stereo piano shifting the image left and right. And in my mixes, if you hear any of my mixes, especially like if you hear the latest Reagan Romance, which sounds pretty damn good, called Love Light Mine, you can hear a lot of these panning effects. So I automate the panning when I don't want to put them static, left, right, or center. As for electric guitars, that's the way to pan. I don't like in-between panning. Like maybe if you have like a ridiculous amount of guitars and you want to stack them, you can go 50% with a pair. But generally speaking, I pan hard left and right. Then yes, you lose something in mono. That's why it's called a stereo mix. If you want a mono compatible mix, 100%, you're gonna mix for mono in mono. Stereo, by definition, is stereo. So when you mono it, you lose something. That's normal. What you want to do is you don't want to lose your vocals, your kick, your snare, and your bass completely. Meaning when you mono a stereo mix, the overall balance should be about the same, okay? Don't obsess over mono compatibility. It's so blown out of proportion. You taught me when you made the video about the loudness and mix, saturation is the key. Yeah, saturation is definitely the key. One of them. Remember, the first key is always balance. Okay, if you have one element that is just out of balance in the mix, that's gonna be your ceiling for loudness. What's your Alberto? What's your favorite album mix wise? It's so hard. And anything Andy Wallace mixed, you know. I have favorite albums for favorite elements or instrument. For example, 13 Steps, Perfect Circle, Andy Wallace. That's my reference for rock bass. That's the rock bass. Like half a dB louder than that and your bass is too loud. Take a look in the mirror from Korn for overall bigness in metal. It's gigantic. Rise from Rammstein. It's absolutely insane. And this will make some people laugh maybe, but Dark Horse from Nickelback for rock, it's stupid. The track that Mike Shipley mixed, man. System of a Down, Toxicity, again, Andy Wallace, but Beck's Andy Wallace. Like, there's so many, but you get the idea. Team Duncan, do you still find yourself struggling in some mixes from time to time, or you're feeling 100% sure when you're mixing after your long experience and don't question yourself anymore? I don't want to sound cocky, but for the most part, no, I don't. Of course, there are mixes that come together easier and faster, but that's usually because the material is good. The mixes that are not coming together is usually because of the arrangement or the source sounds, something like that. At this time, I'm pretty confident. Like I have my chain that I'm relying on, so I have a lot of reference points when I mix. So if something doesn't work, I know why it doesn't, and I know how to adjust for the most part. So no, usually no. I don't know if I'm lucky or whatever, but I usually don't even get revisions for mixes. You know, I might get one revision every 10 mixes or something like that, and it's like usually a small adjustment. King Cobra, if you had to choose only one preamp between API 550 or a Design Pacifica for multi-purpose, what would be? It's on my desk, API 550. I am an API guy for preamps. Melody Jaizimi, thank you for your time with us today. Thank you. Could you still mix at the quality you do with your outboard gear in the box, or do you say outboard gear gives you an edge? It gives me an edge for sure. It gives me an edge, and I'm faster with outboard. That's the thing, okay? And for a professional mixing engineer, a fast turnaround is important because the more you mix, the more money you make, given the same quality. But regardless that, it's more fun, so you're more inspired. So even just because of that, even just for the inspiration part, mixing with hardware makes me at least a better mix engineer because I'm excited, because I'm having fun, you know. And if you're having fun when you're mixing, you're more relaxed. You don't question, you know, every move you make like a billion times. Technically speaking, yes, you can. Of course, you can mix it in the box. I did this year several times. I probably did 30% of my mixes in the box. But I'm not a fan. It takes me longer to get where I want with just plugins. I definitely like my analog mixes better. Speaking about Andy Wallace, I read he uses flanging effect on the bass. Have you ever tried that? Yeah, I did several times. It's a standard technique, to be honest. Probably what he does is he probably parallel the bass and leave only the mid-range and the high range and flanger that. But it's Andy Wallace. He can't do wrong. What do you do as a sport, Antias? Mostly, I would say powerlifting. They call it power building because I Yeah, I focus on the main three, so deadlift, squats, and press, but I also do some accessory exercise, but mostly I power lift. That's what I do. Bruno Noguera, hi Dave, big fan here. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you. Do you like the 90 grunge mix style? Everything sounds clear and heavy. Today I hear more plug-in distortion and I mix the clean of 90s. Well, I do like the 90s grunge mix. I wouldn't say they're clean though. The problem is that the saturation and the distortion back then was like, it was analog, first of all. There were way less plug-in use. And the arrangement were, in my opinion, better. The mix engineering was, generally speaking, a little better because the 90s were still when albums were made in studio. The recordings were done in big rooms with microphones and stuff. And the distortion was not, it's the abuse of digital distortion today that wasn't there in the 90s. So that's probably what you hear. And I love the 90s mixes very much, are among my favorites, if not favorites of all time. So probably in my unconscious, I was inspired by Andy Wallace because I'm a 90s rock mix fan. That's the thing. Like, seriously look at the discography of Andy. And I'm being a complete fanboy right now. But I literally have the 1031s because he has them. But if you look at his discography and you were actively listening music in those years, you realize, oh, okay, I don't like these bands, really. I like him because he mixed everything that I personally liked. And I think that's also why I, like in a small part is why I started being, you know, a mix engineer full time. Because I was like, okay, so you can actually be somewhat an artist by, you know, stamping your imprint and your mixes to some extent without, of course, you know, running over the band and their sound. What is your favorite DI box to record bass and why? I like the Reddy, it's great. I like the API 550, 512, like the direct injection, but watch my review video. The Drummer 1970 that I have here, we actually tested it on bass because he has an instrument input and a dedicated EQ, like a very simple EQ, which treble and bass and a bright bottom. We tested it on bass with Alfie. Shout out to Alfie, that was in the video with me, and it was, holy crap, it was like really nice. But yeah, Red is definitely a great one for tube. I like the API 512, and you know, my new entry is the 1970, has a great instrument input for bass. And I also use the Status Audio. So get a pair of headphones, get familiar with them. I would say that's, you know, what you can do. And nothing. Oh, the other thing is I love the tonal balance control or something by Isotope, which is strange spectrum analyzer. It's got only 4 big bands and it gives you reference. I found that works pretty well. Hey David, how's Bella's music coming along? Oh, she's actually writing in the other room. Bella, someone's asking for you. Someone's asking for you. Captain Slog, you can come here for a second, say hi. Captain Slog, how's Bella's music coming along? So how is it coming along?
Really good.
Hold on, because you have one more.
Really good.
Yeah. So yeah, we're actually about to say hi.
Hi.
We're actually about to film a video for the first single, and then right after we're gonna film the video for the second single. So yeah, it's going good. We're a bit delayed because of the freaking pandemic, right?
Yes.
But it's funny because we are gonna film the video and we need to abide to the coronavirus orders to stay home and stay 6 feet away. So it's gonna be interesting because we decided to use that as a creative tool. So the limitations that we have, to use them creatively. And we are shooting the video with a very good filmmaker. Vicente, are you ready?
Yes, I'm really excited.
It's gonna be soon. We're gonna be filming soon. What it was like mid-May or something. That was gonna be a soft release, and then the main single is gonna come later on, and that's gonna be like a different thing. But yeah. In the meantime, she's still writing. Are you?
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Exactly. All right. So let's see. Let's keep going with the question. If you have questions, since she's here, you can ask me. Cortical one, David, thanks for all you do. So curious to hear a little more about your thought on the music and audio production mixing on the Resident 2 album. I've been asked before. Hold on, Antias. I'll reply first the other one. Antias, have you a personal project? Reagan Romance is, I'm very involved in that with Ty Oliver from Powerman 5000. That's his project. But we worked on the arrangement and the production together a lot. I recorded all the guest singers and stuff and did all the vocal production for it. So I feel it mine. I feel it mine. And I know Ty will be happy for me to say that. I really love the project. It's great. And of course, she's my artist. So I don't have any personal project as a musician, but I've been developing Bella for like a year and something. So when she's gonna be out, that's gonna be like my little creature. Granted that the talent is her, not me, but I'm doing what I can. Cortical, the recent Tool album. Oh, I'm not a big fan of it. And I love Tool, but I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of the songs. They're not bad, but they're not like at the level, in my opinion, that Tool were in the previous albums. And I absolutely love Joe Barresi. First, let me say this, okay? I absolutely love it. For me, it's like one of the top 3 in the world. I love his work so much. But I'm not a fan of the mix on that album. And I don't think it's the mix. It's probably the source sounds that maybe the band picked. So yeah, I don't want to offend anyone because again, I love Tool and I love Joe and I have all the respect in the world for Joe, but I'm not a fan of that album. Hey David, just ordered a pair of Kali LP8. I'm hoping they will work well in 1412 room, 6 feet ceiling. Do you think I still need a sub? LP8 in that room, I don't think you will need a sub. LP8, I have them there in that box. They go pretty low. You shouldn't need a sub with those, to be honest. Captain's Log 220, love the hair on Bella's awesome.
Thank you.
When we can hear Bella's music, you can't because everything is under key until the first video and single is released. But I used her track in the Neve Genesis Black console video. So I did a video for Neve, for AMS Neve, and I'm showing you how I use their Neve Black console. I used one of her song in there, so you can have a sneak peek at least. Can you share your thoughts about monitor system you had or work on, what you liked and disliked about them? I used to have ADAM monitors, and what I didn't like was the laser beam tweeter, which is completely the opposite of the Eve Audio, which are they have such a wide sweet spot. And granted, my Eve are gigantic, but I tried all the others, and their tweeter is the same technology, so it's a lot better. I like them so much. I like Eve Audio because overall they're so balanced, even a low volume and stuff. I worked on pretty much anything. As you can see, I reverted to my Gens 1031s. This is the original, it's the wood box, because they tell me something that other monitors don't tell me. I love the Kali LP8. I tried and worked on Focal several times, and I didn't click with them. I worked on PMC, like the big towers, and they're amazing. They're fantastic. A little more hi-fi compared to my big Eve, which are just gigantic studio monitors that tells you the truth. And if your mix doesn't sound good, they don't make it sound good. I don't like NS10s, never liked them. I like the Reftones, Horror Tones, one speaker, which I don't have, I'll get one. It's all about where you put your monitors, really. How do you use stereo image the most? What technique? Usually, well, I have a bunch of plugins that I use for stereoizing the mix. I did a video on it, 10 ways to widen or double vocals. Those plugins are listed there. 50% of the time I just use a delay line, a short delay, and that's about it, or a short reverb. But Ozone Imager, they added the mode 2 to it. It's pretty natural. There's one that is called Vocal Splitter. That is a great plugin for that. Lipwig Audio also have a couple that I use. But yeah, watch that video. It's 10 ways to stereoize a vocal or something like that. When do you know when a mix is finished? That's experience. I don't believe when people say, oh, a mix is never finished, you run out of time. No, you know when a mix is finished. You know, there's, first of all, when you listen top to bottom, there's nothing that bothers you. That's the first thing. You know, if it has a groove and you tap your leg or you tap your hand and you nod your head, if at some point you find yourself stopping, even for a second, there's something wrong there, okay? But other than that is when you listen to it and you enjoy it, you don't find anything that bothers you. And then the double check is when you play it in a playlist with the top guys, he holds his weight. That's pretty much it. But it takes time to realize when a mix is finished. Paul Allen, what single piece of gear would you recommend for the master bus? Wow, that's hard. If I only had to have one, it would be either the Rupert Neve master bus processor. That would be probably it, you know. There's the Fusion out there, which I didn't try, but I don't think it only has an high frequency compressor or something like that, which for a all-in-one box, that would probably be my choice, the master bus processor by Neve. Have you always liked your mixes? There was a moment that you thought you were not good and thought about giving up? Yeah, many times. Many times, for years. That's normal. That's normal. And usually the curve, it goes like this, meaning you start and you start liking what you do because it's the first steps and you are able to make things sound pretty good, better than they are when you start. But at some point you start fucking around with plugins and machines and stuff, and you start going into advanced techniques, and that you're not experienced yet, so you fuck up more. You do more bad than good. And that curve can last a little bit. And then you start realizing, oh, maybe I don't need 50 plugins or 5 compressors on that track, and you start getting better. But yeah, it does happen all the time. I mean, not all the time, it did happen in the past. How do you dial in a compressor? Do you have some steps? Yeah, I usually dial in a compressor really quick, and especially if it's a compressor that you don't know. Like, again, watch the video that I did on the Neve Genesis console. I wasn't familiar with the 88 series compressor, and what you do is you crank the ratio. You put the attack all the way fast and the release almost all the way fast. And then you start lowering the threshold and hear the sound of the compressor at the extreme settings. So you immediately get familiar with it. And then you start giving them a slower attack time. So you feel how snappy it is, how it reacts to the material. And then with those extreme settings, let's say 10 to 12 dB of gain reduction or even more at a high ratio, you start dialing in attack and release and see how it pumps, if the release is logarithmic, if it's linear, how it reacts to the material. And then once you found the groove, because the attack and release is what are gonna give you the groove, then you lower the threshold and you lower the ratio and you lower the threshold to where it sounds the way you want. What do you think are the differences between a good mix engineer and a great mix engineer? It's hard to say. I would say experience first. The possibility to work with great artists second, because you're only as good as your source material. So if you don't ever have a chance to work with, you know, great musicians and stuff, you're always gonna look less than you are. I would think experience, creativity, and also work, like how a mix engineer, how hungry it is to stay on top of things, to stay up to date. Hey David, what's the best saturation plugin and setting for mixing trap, kick, and snare? I like several. One of my favorite lately is called Loudness by Tone Empire. It's mean. I also like the old Lo-Fi from Pro Tools for snare saturation. And I would say Abuser from Audiority. Badass. It has like a bunch of algorithm. They're all great. And Ozone Exciter is also a great one. Decapitator still works, where you can hear Bella's music. I said it before, nothing until it's released, but of course, follow the channel. It will be here. It will be everywhere. Have you heard Adam A7X asking because I'm looking for a solution which is kind of opposite. I find them too scooped, like Loudness, bottom i5. Yes, but I had Adam A7 original, which are completely different from A7X, which are hi-fi. Very hi-fi, scooped. I find the low end is hyped, and the high end, it's like, I don't know, I don't click with them. I gravitate, you see what I'm gravitating and what I personally like. Eve Audio are my mains. I like Kali, they are like great bang for the bucks. I like these gents, you cannot find them because they're discontinued. Look into the smaller Eves, I personally like the 2-ways better. 8 to 6 inches. The new 3-way of Eve is great, but I don't know what to say. Like, I really like the Eve tweeter and low end and the port on the back. I think they're like a tad superior from other speakers in the same price range for sure, but even higher price range. Cortical One, thanks for the honest answer, man, and on tool on everything, no problem. Your input is valuable because your experience, expertise, and honesty. Thanks, man. You happen to do mix down direct, or you mix down with a lot of headroom to do master behind? I'm not sure. I do my mix. I print my mix, of course, because when you mix hybrid, you print mix. You can't do offline. And I don't master on the same project. I master on a different project. And when you print your mix, I said this several times, it doesn't matter if you print with 12 dB of headroom or 1. It does not matter, okay? Especially if you're all in the box. If you're all in the box, it does not matter one bit. If you're using analog like me, well, you go according to your outboard gear level, the sweet spot. I said it at the beginning of this live stream. Where do I hit my knees? That's my level, which usually equates to about -6 when I pitch and catch. When I catch the mix, when I print it from the machines, at that level underneath, it equals about -6. What can one expect as far as teaching style from your mixing hip hop course and from Mix Academy? How it's different from the other hip hop courses they have? Well, one of the main differences from hip hop is I was mostly a metal guy and a rock guy, so I'm used to have mixes that have 140 or 200 tracks. So for me, a hip hop mix that has 40 tracks, it's, breakfast. And, if you follow my videos, you know my style. I tell you why I do things. I tell you why and what's the thought process behind it. Which I don't know what's the difference with the others because I didn't watch the others, but my hip hop course was the best selling on Pro Mix Academy for a while, so that should tell you something, and people here will give you feedback on that. It's very comprehensive, as in there's recording, mixing, mastering, everything. Okay. Hey, David and Bella, Andrew Vega, I have some beats for Bella. Should I send them or you're good for now? Well, she writes constantly. She writes like how many? Like 10 songs like every 2 weeks or something or more.
Yeah, I just try to get my emotion out.
Yeah. So I definitely send away. Definitely send them away. She I don't pick, like, she picks the beats. If she likes it, she will use it. Brian King, she's talented, dude. We know. That's why it was so much time and effort into her product. Please go to how to make a mix feel more emotional and human. Automation. That is what makes people move, is automation. Volume automation for the most time, effects automation, but yeah, stuff like that. Automation, it's you moving faders and moving things that makes a mix feel more emotional and move people. That's the difference. I think when someone asked me earlier, what's the difference between a great and a good mix engineer, it's how you do automation. I think that's it. I heard that a mix is during 5-6 hours. What do you think about it? Some do, some take 5-6 hours, some take 15 to 20. It depends on the track counts. The sneak peek of Bella is dope. Wow. So the sneak peek is your song. Yeah, that is a cool track. And mind you, the rest of the tracks are gonna be pretty different from that one. But that's why it's a soft release. We're testing the market in very two different variation of the same genre. But I decided to use that song and to do a soft release with that one because everybody that was listening to it, like when I was double checking with friends and people in the industry, they were like, "Holy shit, that's good." And I liked it, we liked it, so we decided to the first video to be that one, especially because it's easier to film now that we are in quarantine and all that. Thomas Percival, do you happen to master music? If so, what format would you need, aka wave to track or stamp file? How can we discuss this? Of course I master. I actually mastered more than I mixed in the past 6 months. And actually shout out to Sidney Valette. His album was #1 on Beatport EDM chart or something. I mastered that one. He did a great job with it. How can we discuss it? Write to the email that you find in the info box down below, and someone will get back to you. How would you describe Bella's genre? That song in particular is it's pretty different from the rest. Would you agree?
Very.
Yeah. That one is aggressive trap, if you want. The song that is in the new video, and it's a part of her writing style, definitely. But she's more what people probably associate with auto pop or emotional pop. Like Lana Del Rey is one parallel that I can do, but she's also very different from her. At first, I thought her voice, her singing voice, was her strong point. And then I realized it was, after almost a year, it was her songwriting. And she's a top liner, okay? She doesn't write the music, she's a top liner. That's why some people were asking to send beat, because we have a team of people. Her songwriting is what really makes her special as an artist. And her songs are very emotional. Like you will hear the second single especially. So I would put her in adult pop, contemporary. The rest of the songs are very intense emotionally and very melancholic. But that one, Throat is called, that we were filming the video, that is like an oddball because she also writes that kind of stuff a lot more, things that are a lot more aggressive. And that one came out pretty good.
I write how I feel at the moment, so sometimes if I feel upset, it will come out more aggressive, but if I feel more sad, it will come out sadder and more like mopey type of song.
So she is, as you hear, she does not care about the business part of it, or she doesn't plan, or this song is going to be a single, this song is not going to be a single. She just no filter emotion writes, and what comes out, like most of the time, is pretty amazing. So yeah, thank you for asking, by the way. Bella needs a better seat, David. Yeah, I'm still setting up the room, and unfortunately, it wasn't planned that she was coming here. Someone asked, and she was writing there. So poor girl trapped between mix freaks. Yeah, I agree. Empirical Lab Distressor versus Kosh Audio Tweaker. I prefer Distressors. Do you still use the MJUC? It's one of my favorite compressor all the time, and it's still great to steal the benchmark. What is the best dB range to record vocals? It depends on your preamp. Some preamps, you drive them hard, they sound better. Some preamps, they crap out very easily. For example, there was like an Universal Audio, the 610 preamp has a very tiny sweet spot. If you were lower, it wasn't sounding good. If you were like too high, it was, it was crapping out. So the API, I find it sounds better when you drive it hard. As far as when you enter your converters, just stay low. Don't stay nowhere near clipping. There's no reason to. Done the metal and recording drum course by David on both and are amazing. So I guess hip hop course is just as good. Honestly, David is an amazing teacher. Thank you, Alberto, so much. What's her artist name? I want to listen her after the chat. You can't listen to her after the chat because everything is under key. The first single is going to be released by the end of the year, way before the end of the year. So just stay tuned on the channel. She's my exclusive are under exclusive contract, so everything will pass through this channel and the social media. Also, she doesn't really have social media yet. We are gonna handle that after the first single. So, do you use balance cable to connect all your pieces of gear? Do you care much about it? Should we? Yes. Why not? A lot of people use unbalanced cable for short cables, and it's fine. But personally, I use all balanced. Also, because all the gear is balanced line level. Like, why not? What's good recording tracking chain under $1,200? It depends on what. Like, for what? I would say get an SM7 as a preamp. I have expensive taste in preamps. You could get the Drummer 1970, which is a dual preamp instrument input and FET compressor for about 1,000, and then an SM7, and you're done. I recorded a lot of stuff with that, and it sounds great. In the beginning of your career, you get everything clients sent to you. How do you use to deal with bad recorded songs or simply horrible songs? I mean, bad arrangement and musicians. It depends. I answered this on another Q&A. It depends. Like, if you have to, and you have to pay bills, just ask your name not to go on the credits. It's your right to do so. And if you are at a bit of a higher level and you can say no, then if you don't want to do it because it's horrible, just don't do it. But unfortunately, at the beginning of the career, it happens to everybody that you have to deal with badly recorded stuff, and you need to try to assess if you can make it sound decent enough for them to be happy, and then ask your name not to be there, because you can make crappy recorded material sound good only to a certain extent. So the mix overall is going to be West Audio, Hyperion, or Prometheus for Mixbus, and why? I personally I like Prometheus better, but I don't use it on the 2-bus. I use it on kick and vocals, dual mono. But Hyperion is great. Drop gear for a Mobella. What's the theme of your song you're writing lyrics at the moment? So what are your last song? What's about?
It's about the moonlight and heartbreak.
Okay. So that's the theme for the last song. Do you protect your hearing concert clubs? Yes, I use the plugs when I go out, and I always mix a low volume. What's the Sci-Fi Spectrum Power Rangers device on your monitors? Doesn't distract you from mixing? Those are alien signaling thing, and no, they don't distract me. They're just lights. Drummer 1976 or some other saturation recommendation. If you have time, could you make sort of demo and strict settings on the 1976? I do have a video on it. I have it here. It's in my desk. So it's a great unit. It's one of a kind because they combine multi-band saturation with multi-band stereo widening. So there's nothing sounds like this. Just go for it, and it's a great tool. There are a lot of saturators out there. I personally like the Drummer. If I want something subtle, I have either any of the West Audio with the THD, or any of my piece of gear as a color, like LA3A, 2A, Distressors, Successor, 609. Every piece on this desk is color. API, the Neves, all of them. Converters of choice, Motu. I have switched recently to all Motu from SSL before. I still have a Crane Song head for printing my master, but Motu. Okay, so question for Bella. Do you write about your life when songwriting? I want to do that. Can you give me any advice? Thanks.
When I write, I use it to purge emotions out of me, or sometimes I'll write a story out, like on a piece of paper, a fake story I make up, and then I'll write a song around the fake story I make up. It just helps purge out emotion, so you don't keep it bottled up instead of talking about it, because I don't really like talking.
So you do write sometimes about your personal life as well. Okay. I hope this answered the question. Hi, David. Weird question. How do you record clean and reamp a vocal later through any piece of gear? I have. And have you tried to reamp a grand piano like feeding? Yes. I also have a video about that. I reamped vocals, drums, guitars, bass, synths into pedals. What you need is a reamp box and a DI box. And then you reamp any other signal just as you would do with an electric guitar. Thoughts on SSL Fusion? It looks very interesting on paper. I would love to try it, but I never did. Song update guru, Sir, we should remove breath by automation or waves the breath, Sir, and clicks. How do you remove? I like to remove breaths by hand with automation just because I want complete control, and I think it's better if you sometimes you don't want to remove them, completely. You just want to tame them a little bit. Is hardware more important than mixing or mixing or tracking? Both, if you ask me. I think in tracking, you need to have a good mic and a good preamp. You don't need to have a compressor and an EQ. When I think you do in mixing. The two stages are equally important. Do you limit yourself while mixing? I mean, plugins avoids too much choices. I don't forcefully limit myself. I just, with experience, you tend to use less processor by, naturally. That's it. Hi, David. How do you manage the signal into your hardware master chain? Do gain staging first, and then pull all the fader to Unity, and that gain staging will give me, as a result, the level dB plus or minus where I want to hit my two bus chain, which is the Neves and the Dion and the filters and the drummer EQ. And then as the mixes go on, every time I process something with compressor or EQ, I level match. So that level almost never changes, and if it changes, like 2 dB up or down. All right, so we gotta go, guys. It's late. Thank you, everybody, for being here. You want to say thank you to the guys?
Thank you.
And stay tuned, and I'll see you next time. Stay safe.